Well, hello all and welcome to the Rails Board meeting. This is Friday, July 24th, 2020. My name is Paul Mills. I am president of the Rails Board and I call this meeting to order at 1 o'clock. In accordance with the Government Emergency Administrative Act, Public Act 100-0640, the Rails Board of Directors find an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent and believes in the best interest of Rails to hold a virtual meeting to perform essential business. A quick note, everyone please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. Say your name when making a motion or comment. All votes will be by roll call for this meeting, and thank you all for being here. With that, we'll move on to Emily, who will call a roll for us.
Okay, Sue Busenbark.
Here.
Michael Campbell.
Here.
Haley Cox. Percy Harris. Diane Hollister.
Here.
Chris Kenny.
Here.
Sarah McCone Chase.
Here.
Paul Mills.
Here.
Jenna Namek-Luisi.
Here.
Scott Poynton.
Here.
Becky Spratford.
Here.
Thomas Stagg.
Here.
Beth Teppen.
Here.
And Percy Harris has joined us also. Just missed you on there. And did Sarah make it yet? Okay, she said she may be running a little late.
A different Sarah?
I'm sorry, Haley.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Emily, do we have quorum, Emily?
I don't think we're
We
done.
do.
Did you call Alex? I didn't hear you if you did.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you hear me, Alex?
No, sorry. I'm here.
All right, Alex Vancina.
Here.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Emily. Yes.
Yes. All right. So yes, Zoom is our life for I think the foreseeable future, though. So we will just enjoy these little foibles. So we now move on to item number 3, recognitions of guests and announcements. Emily will kindly read the names of guests who are participating via Zoom.
Okay. Myself, Emily Feister, Rails. We have Mark Hatch with Rails, Ryan Hubble from Rails, Anna Duff from Rails, Mary Witt with Rails, Joe Philippic from Rails. I don't have another screen, and Greg McCormick from the Illinois State Library. Did I miss anyone?
Yes, you've missed Deirdre Brennan in Berlin.
Oh, I can't see who's actually in there. So Deirdre Brennan.
Right. Yep.
Kim Krieger.
Monica Harris.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. If Emily has not read your name, would you please state your name and affiliation, or please put it in the Zoom chat so that she can read it and we can make sure it is added to the minutes. We'll just give that just a little bit of time. Is there anyone that we missed?
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you all. Well, we now move on to public comment, which is, well, look, it's me. We are handling public comment via Zoom or by previous submission to Emily. Emily, did you receive any comments in advance of the meeting?
I received no public comments.
Thank you, Emily. Does anyone have any public comments at this time? Emily, is there any public comment in the Zoom chat? Since I don't see that right now.
There are none.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, we are now moving on to adoption of the agenda. And please note, it's our first motion of the day. When you do make a motion, please do state your name ahead so that makes it easier for Emily to record that. The same for those folks who make second for motions. And also one more reminder, because the nature of how we're conducting this meeting, every motion will be voted on by a roll call vote. So all of that preamble for me to ask, May I have a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda as presented?
So moved, McCone Chase.
Thank you.
Second, Diane Hollister.
Thank you, Diane. Any conversation about the agenda? Hearing none, Emily, would you kindly call a roll call vote?
Sue Busenbark,
Aye.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cox. She's connecting. Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna McLuisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Peppin,
Yes.
Alex Mencina.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Thank you all. Well, we now move on to something that's actually very, very exciting with the oath of office and election of new officers. So the first thing I would like to do is ask the newly elected board members to please stand, and I will stand as well, and recite the oath of office. So let us all stand, and hopefully you can see that I'm standing. I feel like I'm on camera.
You're too tall, Paul.
No, I will stand fully. This is very important. All right, folks. For our newly elected board members, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support
That I will
that
support
I will support
That I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of member of the Board of Directors
as
of
members of
member
the
of the
Board of Directors
Directors
of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System
of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
All right. Well, congratulations, everyone. Thank you all for participating and volunteering your time and talents to serve on the board of one of the most amazing organizations I've had the privilege to serve on, and we all look forward to working with you all. Now that we're all here and we're all official, we move on to election of officers. As you may be aware, Rails practice actually in our bylaws is that we have a nominating committee, and there is a memo in your packet that develops a slate of officers for the Rails Board of Directors for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Allow me to take a moment just to read the slate. The slate recommended by the nominating committee is Michael Campbell as president, Thomas Stagg as vice president, Sarah McCone Chase as secretary, and Diane Hollister as treasurer. And just because I think it's just important to acknowledge these volunteers as well, I would like to personally thank the members of the nominating committee, Jenna Burr, Jay Caston, Mary Jo Matusek, and Ashton Trimble for doing actually several meetings for this work. And that they do this out of their own generosity and their care for the system. So thank you all. Now, in addition to the slate proposed by the nominating committee, the floor is also open to nominations. Are there any other nominations for those positions? Any other nominations from the floor? All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval and a second for the slate of officers as presented?
This is Jenna, so moved.
Thank you, Jenna.
This is Scott. I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. Any further comments about the slate? Hearing none, Emily, would you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenbark,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cox,
Yeah.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Namek-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Teppen,
Yes.
and Alex Vincina.
Yes.
All right, thank you all. Well, as I said earlier, it's truly been a pleasure to serve as president of the Rails board. It's a wonderful board. I welcome the new board members to what I think is an excellent governing body, and you all are truly going to have the privilege of working with one of the best library staffs that I've known. So, with that, I turn it over to Michael.
Well, before I take the reins, I think we should give Paul a round of applause for his service. And I'm glad that he will be with us for a while, so there will be some consistency here. So thank you.
Yes.
So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, the approval of the Rails board meeting. So may I have a motion for the approval of minutes of the June 19th, 2020 Rails board meeting?
Paul Mills, so moved.
Thank you, Paul. And a second?
McCone Chase, second.
Thank you.
Or second McCone Chase,
Sarah?
sorry.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favor? Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenbark,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cox,
Yeah.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Namek-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Teppen,
Yes.
Alex Vincina.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So next up is Jim with the financial reports and expenditures.
Thank you, Michael. You have in your packet the Rails financial report for the month, 12 months ended June 30th, 2020. This is our normal report that we give. It's only on the governmental funds, and it's not audited. We will have a few more bookings of expenditures to make, but they shouldn't be too significant to what you see here. The final annual report, financial report, will be issued in the month of December and be available for review and presentation by our auditors, Lauterbach and Amen. This will be the first year of their audit with us. We've had Sickage since inception and before with the predecessor funds. The June 30th unassigned general fund cash balance was $13.4 million. It decreased during the month as we have not received any area per capita grant payments since January. We're hopeful of getting something soon. But we still have, for over 1 year, 14.3 months of coverage in the cash balance that we have. So it's certainly not a critical situation yet. The general fund revenues were $3,393,000 below budget, primarily from the lower area per capita grant revenues. The investment income has continued very unfavorable to what it had. We started out the year, for the month of July, we had over $38,000 of investment income when rates were about 2.5%. Currently, they're at the end of June, they're down to just over 0.3%, and our interest income for the month of June was $7,249. It's been a variable amount. Our expenditures were $879,000 under budget due to lower in budget expenses in most categories, primarily contractual services and personnel. The vehicle expenditures and travel certainly were much lower, were very much affected by the pandemic, and those expenses were also well below budget. We had a lot of activity in the special revenue fund expenditures, and these are funds that are funded by specific grants for projects. Notably, the Census 2020 and L2 replacement grant projects. They were over $1 million for the year. The census grant project was nearly $700,000, and we overspent on the L2 project, but that'll be covered by a grant for fiscal year 21. And we also expect to be, we also have a receivable for the census, and that will be forthcoming within the next month or two. Delivery expenses were $257,000 below budget, and much of that was personnel and the vehicle expenses because of being shut down from mid-March. In summary, our general fund expenditures exceeded revenues by $2,432,227, thus resulting in a decline in fund balance. If we still have over $6.4 million of revenues due, we can recognize those as revenues if we, by accounting rules, if we receive those within 60 days following the end of the fiscal year. So hopefully we will get enough in so that we don't, at least so that we don't have a deficit for the year. Can I answer any questions?
I have a question, Jim. When did you say we would have the audit this year?
We would present it at the September.
So the same as.
Yeah, same as always.
Okay, I just couldn't hear you. It's like.
Yeah, it'll be in the September board meeting. We'll have a presentation of the annual financial statements.
Great.
And the annual financial statements will include items you don't see in the governmental funds, such as our pension net asset, our fixed assets. We go through that exercise once a year to put everything on a more or less an accrual basis and show these other areas of our business that we don't show during the year in the governmental funds. And the good news on that I can give you so far is that we are in a net asset position on pensions of close to $5 million. Instead of a pension liability. So we're in very good shape on our pension funding.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So may I have a motion for approval of the expenditures for June 2019?
These are listed at the end of the report, and they the total amount is $1,264,323.88. Normally and just a clarification, normally we spend around $700,000 to $800,000 on our general fund operations. So this, and that does vary too, but in June we had a lot of activity on the L2 and the census program, which we will be reimbursed for, and so the total is a bit higher.
So,
Scott, I'll make a motion to approve.
But
You have a question, Michael?
yeah, before that, Scott, are you having to spend quite a bit on PPE or anything?
We've spent somewhere around 10,000 so far, I think. And I have been in a continuous process of accumulating these
Struggle, I would think, is a
documentation for these expenditures
Okay.
to be reimbursed by a FEMA grant.
Okay,
And I have till about mid-September to get that in, so I'm kind of assembling that. I just did that a week ago, and I'm about ready to cut off. But we spent about $2,000 or $3,000 with a cleaning of our 5 locations, and then we bought a lot of masks and sterilization equipment and a few things like that. Since then, that added another $7,000 or $8,000 to that.
okay.
But we hope to get that all reimbursed through the FEMA grant.
Sorry, any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion by Scott for approval of the expenditures. Do we have a second?
Second that.
So Alex seconds that. So Emily, will you please call roll?
Sue Busenberg,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Ellie Cox,
Yes.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Nemec-Louisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Stratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Teppen,
Yes.
Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the motion carries. So,
Thank you.
okay, so we'll move on to reports. So each month we have our board committee reports. We'll start off with the report from the president. Since I'm new, Paul, do you have anything for the previous president?
I do not have one, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
So for the Advocacy Committee, I chair that committee, and we just met this past week. The committee has been discussing school libraries and the advocacy revolving around school libraries. As you've heard, because of the pandemic, many school libraries and school librarians are being laid off. In the state back to school, the State Department of Education basically gave them 2 sentences. And so there wasn't much emphasis put on school libraries. So we are really trying to put some advocacy on the school libraries. So we're trying to give them lots of cooperation with the IELTS group. And on Friday, Jenna and I and Deidre met with them, and we'll continue to try to give them as much support as possible. Our session has been accepted for ILA. Deidre is also checking on the trustee forum.
Percy
and-
here today, too.
And so we have quite a bit going on with the advocacy committee, and we'll continue to push forward with our advocacy for the school librarians and what we can do to help them and how Rails can support that group of our libraries. Next up is the Consortium Committee.
Thank you, sir. The Consortium Committee was scheduled to meet in July, but actually due to truly a lack of pressing business, the meeting was canceled. I would like to note that Rails staff has been in constant contact with consortium managers to ensure that Rails can coordinate any needed services as consortiums begin restoring services.
The executive committee did not meet. Policy committee, Deidre.
Did not meet,
Okay. Resource sharing committee.
has not met.
Okay. And then the universal service committee, Sue.
We have not met, but if you noticed in Deirdre's executive director goals, there's some statements about continuing to advocate for changes to the library district law that would make it easier for libraries to form districts, and for legislative passage of a broader Cards for Kids law. And Deirdre, did you want to expand on any of that, or?
I can, and
Well,
Greg can chime in too. Oh,
Unless you want to wait.
yeah, we can wait until my report and the state library report.
Okay.
How's that? Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
that's it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks to everyone. And so we'll move on to Deidre Brennan and the Rails report.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Paul, for your year of great presidential service. Want to welcome all the new board members. Again, we had a great orientation session this morning, and thank you, continuing board members who were present also. We're really glad that you've joined the Rails board, and we're looking forward to working with you. So every month, probably not surprising, we do, just as a little recap for the new board members, we do a report. And it's organized around our strategic plan goals. And so generally, I don't spend a lot of time on it because it's a written report, but I do provide some highlights and just, notes, particular things for you. I think the first section about resource sharing and the fact that delivery has resumed is very important. That was, we were so glad to get delivery open again, to get resource sharing running again. We do, at this point, estimate it's not possible at this point to get specific numbers, but we know that our drivers, I think we're up to nearly 80% of libraries now, maybe resuming delivery. Yeah. But the volume is still very low. And so that only makes sense because a lot of libraries still aren't open to the public. It's a lot of just curbside and holds only. We do hope and expect that will continue to increase. I hope you will go and look at the reporting tool. I provided a link from the report that's on the Pulse page on our website because you can see you just get an immediate up-to-date snapshot about what's going on in the libraries that have filled out the survey that's there. It's really great information. Related, the LSAPs have not all resumed service, so that has a big effect on volume. As Michael said, advocacy is going to be a big focus. We're going to talk about My Library Is later. I did include an article about school libraries in my report. Yes, I'm very worried about school libraries. I mean, things were bad enough, I guess is what I would say, that in terms of their funding, the perception of school librarians by school administrators was, not always, there are not always a lot of support there. And now with the pandemic, it's even worse, which is, like, to my mind, terrible and ridiculous because of all the e-learning that needs to be taking place, and so the e-resources that are needed. So anyway, we'll talk more about that. Let's see, we did have a member update yesterday. We had about 400 attendees. We heard great presentations from Sharon Streams, who works at OCLC. She's the director of Web Junction, and she's a person in all of the communications about the Realm project. Let's see, our budget and plan of service was approved. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you? I think those are the updates for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Deidre. And so now we'll go to the State Library. Greg?
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Secretary White and everyone here at the State Library. Certainly, congratulations and welcome to all of the new board members. Congratulations to the new officers. So I'll hit on a few things about what's been going on at the State Library since the last meeting when Karen Egan was reporting for the State Library and attending this meeting. So as Deidre said a few moments ago, yes, the system area per capita grant for Rails and the other two library systems was approved. And we've also moved forward with attempting to at least issue the initial payments for FY21. I would update what was indicated in Jim's report. I do believe that a portion of what is owed to you still for FY20 or your FY20 grant should be forthcoming in days. It's certainly not the full amount. We're still awaiting for transfers to be made into the Live and Learn Fund by the State Comptroller's Office. In addition,
I say yay.
We're all saying yay.
Yes, I know.
It's a few million short, but we're saying yay. So
yes, we are.
In addition to the library system grants, we were able to get the radio information service grants for the statewide Talking Book and Braille service. Services processed, Project Next Generation grants, the grant for the delivery service through Carly, and of which Rails has a very direct role in facilitating, although we're still seeing that service ramp up, as was just reported, and also for the second year of L2 funding. So we're pleased that all of that is moving forward. Another area which was mentioned briefly, and Joe Natale, our Chief Deputy Director, spoke to Rails about yesterday, was what we are in the very initial stages of as far as crafting administrative rules for non-resident services, specifically for the Cards for Kids legislation that was passed in Public Act 1010632, and then actually going back and addressing some legislation that's been in place for several years regarding disabled veterans and exemptions from taxation. But that question doesn't come up that often. I think I can cite at least 2 instances, one in each library system, where that question has been raised. But based upon the level of disability of the veteran, they too do not pay local real estate taxes. Therefore, they should not be paying a non-resident fee for library services. It's just an equitable distribution. As far as the Cards for Kids program, there's still some obvious work to be done, and we will have to work closely with library systems on that. Specifically, some definitions, kids. We know that there's been some alternative language that your director and Rails has presented to ILA that would even possibly expand this component of legislation. But right now we have to focus upon what the law says. and limit the rule to that. And so we will be working with that situation. Key here though is, we can have these conversations up until the point we file the rule, and then it becomes a much more formal process because of the ex parte communications requirements in the administrative rule process. But we look forward to those discussions. Actually, hopefully we'll be looking Monday at when we might be scheduling some of those meetings with the regional library systems and appropriate staff from each to continue to get that work completed. The library system annual report, that too, we will be finishing the draft of that, which, as Jim indicated and Deidre, about the September 30 due date for the audit. That is a component of the annual report. We're looking to make certain that everything that we've asked for in the past is indeed necessary today in FY or FY20 and in forthcoming years. It's possible that maybe that could be even a bit more streamlined and probably much appreciated at this point.
Yes. I'll say yay again.
Yay again. Some of you may have seen in the press about the search for the new Illinois Poet Laureate. I am fortunate to sit on that committee, which is with the governor's office, and it is chaired by Nora Brooks Blakely, who is Gwendolyn Brooks' daughter. So it's an interesting group, and if you are a big advocate or fan of poetry, I would encourage you to, and I had this information sitting here, to go look. It's on the governor's website, www.illinois.gov/poet laureate. All of the information regarding the search, nomination, and how that process will take place is available there. Ultimately, the committee will move several names forward for the decision by the First Lady. So it will be a fun process. But the deadline is coming up soon, which is actually August 15th. It is a very short process. But I understand that there are some nominations that have been submitted already. Regarding schools, school libraries, that, yes, is going to be an ongoing area of concern. We've received communication here at the State Library as well from ISLE. I did want to point out, I don't know that everyone has seen it, yesterday the State Board of Education released another document regarding the fall 2020 learning recommendations, media centers, and how library materials might be provided to students was mentioned in there. So that, I think, is a step forward from maybe where the previous document that people have focused on is not. I will admit it's not extensive, and much of it would read similar to what maybe public libraries are doing with curbside services right now. But there was mention.
That's good news, yes.
Better.
I mean, better news.
Better.
Yeah, right. May not be good.
And that's all I have for today. So.
Okay, any questions for Greg? Thanks, Greg. Okay, so on to number 9 and new business. Business compensation structure. I think most of you got this via email, and I will let Deidre handle this.
Thank you, and yes, and Jim may assist me as well. So, yes, board members were asking you to approve the revised compensation structure that's in your packet that, well, you got via email, that's effective July 1, 2020. The last time we did this was in 2015, 2016. We use HR Source. We have them do a big benchmarking project. We started back in January, analyzing or updating our job descriptions, making sure that they were complete and up to date, and we send them on to HR Source, and they do as I said, they benchmark them both within the library industry, outside of the library industry, among nonprofit organizations, and then they come back with recommendations to us. There weren't a lot of changes. We have been, on the advice of HR Source, updating the ranges, the scales every year when we haven't done a benchmarking study, to keep in line with the CPI is, I think, what we officially use, Consumer Price Index. And so there weren't a lot of issues with our ranges. There were just a couple of positions that were below the minimum, but not by much. So that's really good, because the last time we did this, there were a lot of positions, or a substantial number. So I think we've made a lot of progress in this area, and want to, keep up to date with our salaries. Obviously, very important to be able to provide good salaries and benefits in order to attract and keep the kind of staff team that we want. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Is there
Yes.
a plan going forward, since it was 5 years between each salary scale study, does Rails normally increase by the CPI each year to keep it so it doesn't get so out of whack?
That is what we've been doing, yes. Yes, exactly. And I don't know that we had it in our minds to wait 5 years exactly. We just, all of a sudden it was time to do it again, and then it takes a while to do it. So that might be a little long, but.
No, I know that. I've done them. It takes a while. It's good to do it the right way.
Right. So, but I think the fact that there weren't too many changes is a good sign. Other questions? So I guess a word about salaries in general, since we've got new board members here. So we have been had the practice of doing 3% across the board raises in past years. We did not, that was not in the budget, was in the budget. Yes, it's in the budget.
Yeah.
But we will not be implementing those raises until we have more certainty about what our budget is actually going to look like. So staff raises, along with other major expenditures, laptops, for example, we're just deferring until we have a better sense of whether state revenue decreases will force decreases in our salaries as well, in our budget as well. And this is something that I did discuss with Greg in terms of, how to manage the budget over the next few months until we get more clarity, especially with the income tax question that's going to be on the budget on the ballot in the fall. And just seems like the most prudent thing to do at this point.
I stand corrected.
We did not put them in, right.
Yeah,
I think what we
budgeted it in the past.
Yes.
But
So what we
not budgeted.
decided to do this year was to not put the 3% in the budget, but to, when we have more clarity, to bring the budget back to be amended by the board, if appropriate at that point. It wouldn't, unfortunately, we may be amending it for all kinds of reasons. So anyway, I just a little background on that.
Deirdre, this is Scott. I have a quick
Yep.
question.
Yep.
So, and I just dealt with this in my library, and probably a lot of libraries are with the minimum wage increases. But if the salary structure changes the way it's proposed, if someone was at the step one, if you want to call it that, or the starting salary on the old ranges, are they automatically being moved up? That's, I guess, question number one. Now. And question number two would be, let's say they weren't at the minimum of the old salary range. Let's say they were, I don't know, a little bit above that. And the new salary range beginning is above where they were. How is that being handled? And where I'm going with this is, if people are going to get raises because of this now, shouldn't we hold off on this like you're holding off on the 3% because of the budget concerns?
There's just a few there's just I don't know, 3 or 4. I don't remember how many people below the minimum, and it's like such a small amount of money.
So
How much?
Not very much.
Yeah, I'm like, we're talking like in the hundreds of dollars. So I think we'll fix that. It just doesn't make sense to not, get them in the range.
Okay.
Does that answer?
It does. And because it's a range, I mean, at my library, we have steps, not a range. So it always upsets people when they were at step 5, but then the range, the values that are in the steps change for the better. And even though they're making more money, now they're at step 3. And they always want to know, well, why couldn't I just stay at 5 and then get a raise from there? Is that how we're handling this or not?
Well, we don't have steps, so.
Right. Okay. That makes it easier.
So it's a little bit more flexible that way, although I hadn't realized what you were saying about, not having them versus having them. Yeah, you're right. That does happen. It's the perception.
I have another question about the raises, just for clarification. So since they are not in the budget, when they are put in, does that mean they start at that moment, or will they be retroactive to the beginning of the budget?
Well, that would really be a decision by the board. And, upon recommendation by staff at the point, it'd be nice to think that we'll be able to know this soon and we can make them retroactive. But if we can't, and if they can't be 3%, I mean, we'll have the board will have the approval, the final decision making on that.
Thanks for the clarification. I thought maybe since they aren't in,
Sure.
It might be a moot point here.
Got it.
So Jim, based on what Becky is saying, that this is effective July 1st, if it's approved. That's how you budgeted this.
It didn't really factor.
It didn't
into the budget.
affect,
Okay.
because there were our ranges were so, close to what they need, what the old versus now, that there's just a few people who are not within who are below the minimum of their range in the matter of like hundreds of dollars.
Okay.
We're going to fix that.
Okay.
And then just hold.
Okay.
Yep.
So budget-wise, it really has.
It has no impact,
No impact.
strangely enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, very little impact, put it that way.
Any other questions? Okay. Can I have a motion for approval of the revised compensation structure as presented by Deidre and Jim?
So moved. Ally.
And a second?
Second, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. So Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenbark,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cox,
Yes.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Namek-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Peppin,
Yes.
and Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion carries, so.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to 9.2, which is board committee assignments and the discussion around that. So, Deidre, you want to?
Sure. We talked just a little bit about this morning at the orientation. You have a document in the packet that has the 2021 Rails committees draft. You'll see it has lots of green and yellow and red on it, as well as regular old black ink. We have a number of vacancies on the committees because of board members going off and then other, board members taking on new roles. We do have, so in terms of so it's the president appoints the committee members. We do have an executive committee, which is the officers plus an at-large member. I will tell you that our practice on that has been that the past president is the at-large member. This is the first year that in a long time that we've actually had a past president who didn't immediately leave. So there's that, but it's just a practice. Advocacy Committee, you see the membership there. Consortium Committee, so Paul is the chair, has been the chair, and then Tom is our board rep to the Consortium Committee. And I don't remember if we're supposed to have more than, is there just one board member? Well, there's you too, I suppose. So, no, there's you, and then I think we just have one representative on the Consortium Committee, but I have to verify that, Michael.
Tom's actually been on the committee with me.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there? Yeah. I'm just trying to remember if there's supposed to be somebody else. But anyway, Policy Committee, the vice president is the chair of the Policy Committee. Congratulations, Tom. And we do have 2 vacancies on that committee. Don't know what the work of that committee might be this year. We did redo the employee handbook, as you know, last year, so not sure there will be a lot of work this year. Resource Sharing Committee has been chaired by Charm Runke, who is the director at the Peru Public Library. Her term expires. I think she'd be happy to be reappointed. Diane Hollister has been serving on this committee, and then we do have a vacancy, a Rails board member. We want to have 2 board members on that committee. Universal Service, Sue is the chair of that. 2 board members who are no longer on the board were representatives on that, so we need 2 reps on that. Then we also need the FOIA officer and an ethics officer, and I don't know if you want to be, or I guess you can be the OMA officer if you're the president too. I don't see why not. So those are the committee lists, and we're interested in what you're interested in. This you don't have to tell us today if you don't know. There's not a lot of urgency around this, I don't think, because there's nothing, there's no like hot issue pending. But happy to have any kind of conversations that you would like to have around these committees. And if you're on one that you don't want to be on anymore, that's too. Yes.
I would go back on the Policy Committee. I kind of went off of it last year because some conflicts, but I would go back on that.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way that you want people to report what their interests would be for the committees then? This is Sarah. Hi. When I look at the list now, I see things that I'm interested in, but I'm happy to just email that or whatever.
Yes, I think that would be great. I think if you could all think about it and get back to maybe to me and to or Emily, and then we can let Michael know in a organized
we can
fashion.
Consolidate the responses and then send them on to Michael.
That sounds like a good idea.
Hey, Deirdre, this is Scott. I think most of us are pretty familiar, even the new members, hopefully, are pretty familiar with the role of the committees. They're kind of self-explanatory, but could you quickly explain what FOIA officer and ethics officer does?
Yes, well, the FOIA officer, and I don't have the bylaws in front of me, though I suppose I could find them. So the FOIA officer is, I think, responsible for, I think they're also, their email, I think they get a FOIA request automatically goes to them as well as to the staff person who's the FOIA officer. The ethics officer, if there is an issue with board ethics or staff ethics, conflict of interest perhaps being an example, or something like that, the ethics officer would be called upon, I think, by the president. We've never had an issue, I'm happy to say, but I think the point is that we do have an ethics ordinance, and that the ethics officer would be responsible for making sure that that ordinance is followed, and that any process that needs to be started and followed related to an ethics violation, that would be the job of the ethics officer. I can find the ethics ordinance, or Emily can. It was probably, I thought we included it at some point in the email for the new board members, but not sure. What do you think, Emily?
I can send it to everyone. You did basically, I mean, the ethics officer comes into play if there's an issue. Also, the FOIA officer and OMA officer have to redo training every year, which is the only other aspect of that.
Thank you. I forgot that. Yep.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Sure. Is anybody like dying to get in there first today and tell us what they want? You don't have to, but if you...
OMA, I'm happy.
Right, and Michael apparently is, reluctantly willing to stop being the OMA officer.
I don't think that, if somebody wants to do it, I'm happy
so, I'm teasing. You don't have to tell us today unless you want to.
And
there are on the... Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt. I'm very interested in resource sharing.
If you would be interested in that, that would be awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. And there are, on the website, especially through the board portal that Mary demonstrated just so wonderfully this morning, there are full committee descriptions and, minutes of past meetings and things like that. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, so we'll keep moving on then. So
I think just before the August meeting, though, I think it would be good to at least get the interest.
And so be sure and email Deidre and copy Emily on that for whatever committee or committees that you're interested in. Okay. So let's move to 9.3. And that's the filling of our academic library seat, the discussion and possible action. So, did you want to talk about this a bit?
So we have a couple of options, and we also included the page from the bylaws about this and how we go about it, and how we go about filling a seat between elections. The reason that this is happening is because Gwen Gregory, who has been on the Rails board, took a new job. She had been at UIC. She took a new job at Northern Illinois University. Well, we have a representative from Northern Illinois University. So, as soon as Gwen resigned her job from UIC, according to our bylaws and state law, she can't serve. She's ineligible to serve on the board, which is, very much too bad, but nothing, people get new jobs, and that was a good thing too. So anyway, we've done this a few different ways. Vacancies happen. The most common thing that we have done is if it's been, if there's been a recent election, we have asked the the next vote getter in line, if they would be interested in taking this seat. There was no other candidate, however, for the academic library seat. So the other options, and if you look on this, it's in, it says, you know, vacancies, the system board will appoint an individual to, you know, with the qualifications. So we have both, the executive committee has interviewed, we have, you know, asked for volunteers for eligible candidates first via e-news on the website. And then the executive committee has interviewed and recommended somebody to the board, and then the board votes. So that's the second most common way we have handled this. The other possibility is to have an election, which is, you know, probably more time consuming because we have to, you know, put it out there, get candidates, put the ballot together, you know, potentially have a nominating committee, I guess, since that's that's how the election of directors works, except during a vacancy. I mean, you know, between elections. So I guess my recommendation would be that we, you know, go the route of having the executive committee appoint somebody after we, you know, put out a call for volunteers. I know some of you who have been on the executive committee in the past have been through this. So that's where we're at. Any discussion? I mean, what's your preference?
I guess I think it would be good to avoid an election right now if we can possibly fill the seat some other way. I think this happened, something very similar to this happened last year, like really early in the fiscal year, like right after the committee had formed for the year. If I remember correctly, it wasn't for the academic seat; it was for a different seat. But hi.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It was Percy. I think it was Percy's seat.
And then Jenna.
Jenna.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like I say, it happens pretty often, unfortunately.
So I think we could use that as the example, and we could have the executive committee interview someone. I guess the question then is, how do we identify that person? Is that something that the nominating committee would do then?
No, we would just put out a call for interested parties, volunteers, et cetera, via e-news on our website. Ask for kind of the same thing we asked for with, you know, when we get, you know, candidates for an election. Maybe I should ask Jenna or Percy to describe how it works.
I think that's a great idea, though. That seems like the most efficient way to get the seat filled.
Yes, Jenna.
I can speak to being on the other end of that. So I know last year, it was in August, I believe, that the call went out to fill the unexpired term for the school library seat. And I had the opportunity to, I believe, Mary Witt helped facilitate a form that we could use to express our interest, and not unlike the form that we use when we are looking for candidates to be on the ballot. And I will say that I really enjoyed being interviewed by the executive committee in a way that was a little different than just having my name on a ballot. I think I was really able to, with the questions that were asked, to be able to express my interest in the position and why I thought I was a good fit for it. And I think that it, you know, I can't speak to the executive committee experience, but I know that my own experience was very positive, and I really appreciated that more personal inroad, I guess, to being considered for a position on the Rails board. So I don't know what the turnaround time was on that. That would have been my question, from the time that I know I was seated at the August meeting, because I was able to come. I'm not sure from start to finish how long that process was to have the executive committee kind of put out the call and interview people. Can anyone speak to how long that took?
Yes, it was extremely fast. It was like a month or 6 weeks because it was Christine Barr, and I think she resigned in June or so.
She took her position as a
We're
principal.
always highly motivated to get a full board
As
seated.
someone who's done this on multiple times at the board level, one, there's an added benefit for us as a board by doing it this way with the interviews, in that sometimes you identify multiple candidates that you really like. And then I know in our case, we had to only seat one, but we were able to identify people that were really good and encourage them to run another time or used them on other interest committees, and they got much more involved. So it's really positive that way. The other thing, since we're dealing with an academic seat, I feel like I know a few academic librarians here in Illinois, some who are former IACRL presidents. They have a lot of things they want to share now because of the pandemic that I think maybe they didn't feel like they had as much to share, or they were in the midst of closing down their universities when our deadline was. And I know, that they definitely have a lot to share from a perspective that they might be more willing to now.
Makes sense.
Okay.
So it sounds like you would prefer to do the executive committee appointment approach. Okay. That is certainly would be our recommendation. I think we can turn it around faster, and I think that's important.
So that being the case, so I think we should have a motion and get the approval of the executive committee to hold an interview for the candidate to fill the vacant academic library seat. Can I get somebody to make a motion for that?
Paul Mills, so moved.
Okay. Can I get a second for that?
Diane Hollister, second.
Thank you. So Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenberg,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Ellie Cox,
Yes.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Namek-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Teppen,
Yes.
and Alex Vencina.
Yes.
Okay, so that is approved. So we will.
Great. We will, Emily will now proceed to set up executive committee meeting. And Mary, are you out there somewhere? I can't imagine that you're not.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
I thought you were, so you heard. So we'll be putting out a call, and certainly anybody on the board or at this meeting who knows of a likely great board member who is an academic librarian, by all means, as long as they don't work at Northern Illinois University. We already have a great board member from Northern Illinois University. We do.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Yes. So we'll move on to number 9.4. Each month we've had reports from different areas within the organization. So this month, I believe Deidre and Mary are going to talk about some of the things that they've done with the My Library Is program and what our plan is for FY21.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So, yeah, so you've got quite an extensive report. It shows, some results of the year one. It did start we did launch the What My Library Is website just about a year ago. And you'll see a lot of statistics in here and comments about how much libraries and librarians appreciated it. We did feature it heavily at our conference booths, and as we did talk about earlier, I think, We have, yes, we did. We've focused a lot on school libraries this year, and we are going to be continuing to do that in the plans for year 2. And you'll see there's quite a number of very specific, starting on page 3 of the report, objectives and planned activities to achieve the objectives. And I think, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is that everybody can be an advocate. Everybody needs to be an advocate. It's not just directors, it's not just trustees. And it's not something that you do once a year or, when you go to a legislative meeting and then you don't do it again. It has to be constant. And I think particularly this year, that's going to be true. So the talking points that we've done had done for the different types of libraries are really fantastic. We have, I've been really happy about the closer relationship that we've established with ISLE, with the leadership at ISLE. We do meet with them monthly now, and along with Heartland, and I think that's really, it's really helping for us to understand their situation, their issues, and to see how we can be more supportive of them. And you'll see that's in here as well. Partner with ISLE to target the My Library is grants also at Rail School libraries. We work with ILA on these, obviously, on this whole issue. We worked with ILA on their Bigger Than a Building campaign, and we've worked very closely on this whole advocacy issue so that we can, leverage our efforts and also not duplicate. So happy to answer any questions. And Mary, is there anything you would like to add?
You covered it pretty well. I'd just like to say that the first year of the campaign was based heavily on member feedback. We did do a survey at the start of the year, got some excellent feedback from all types of libraries. And I would say everything we did in the campaign was based on that feedback. So we want to do that again this year. I'd also like to mention that this plan that you see before you is certainly not static. It does include, things that we want to do this year, but I think that other things will also crop up that we'll be able to do as the year goes along. I'm also interested in any feedback any board members have for things we can do with that campaign or any other comments in general.
I have something to add. I'm excited I wanted to mention this during the Advocacy Committee report, but didn't get a chance. I am planning with Dawn Scuderi, who is the Advocacy Manager for ISLE, as well as the Andrea Parent, who's the Communications Manager for ISLE. The three of us are planning an ISLE webinar for early next month called Top 10 Things You Can Do Today to Advocate for Your School Library Program. And I'm very pleased to say that I suggested that we add My Library Is and submitting a story to My Library for that webinar. So we are going to do our utmost to be leveraging not just ISLE resources, because they put together a great new advocacy website, but also ways that we can work together with Rails. So I wanted to just mention that that is forthcoming. The date's either going to be August 6th or August 13th. We're kind of negotiating because our PD calendar for ISLE is filling up pretty quickly. But as soon as we finalize that, we'll let you know in case you want to tune in.
Thank you very much, Jenna. That's great. I think partnerships are a huge part of this effort. So many of the different library organizations have the same goal of helping libraries increase their value. So the more we can do via partnerships, the better. So that's excellent news. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say to Percy, Percy, are you chair or chair-elect of the trustee forum, the ILA trustee forum?
I will be president in August.
Okay.
Starting off.
So, and I know you've been a little busy with your public health work. So we haven't had much opportunity to chat, But, you know, the Advocacy Committee really, and Rails staff, we would really benefit from knowing what the goals of the trustee forum are too, so that we, you know, because our program at ILA that was accepted is actually about public libraries and school libraries and public library trustees working together to help advocate for school libraries. So, you know, we just want to be sure that we're all synced up and we know what each other is doing. So if you ever have time, it would be great to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I just wanted to actually apologize to the board. You know, I've been so busy, I haven't been time to actually be part of the Advocacy Committee and be part of these meetings. And I really, really apologize. It's actually right now I'm multitasking. Trying to do a board meeting, and I'm actually videoing. We're doing a public health show, and guess what? I'm the producer, so I'm all over the place. So I just want to apologize to the board. You know, I know what my duties are, and I'm hopefully next month all this will pass, and we can sit down and talk about everything. So I just want to just put that out there.
There is no need to apologize. There is no.
You have a frontline worker.
Yeah, I know. You are right. You are yes, you are an essential worker.
Yes.
Percy works at Cook County for the public health,
Yes.
so you can imagine what his life has been like.
Yes.
But you know, we really want to know too. So we want to be sure we can work together because advocacy is going to be huge this year. So anyway, all right, that's our report, I think.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so thank you very much for that. So that's been very successful.
Yes,
I think
it's
people
great.
Really enjoy that.
Yes,
So.
I think it's really been a benefit.
So we will move on to item number 10 and 10.1, which is our unfinished business. 10.1 is Rails board meeting schedule for FY 2021, which is hard to say that since we still haven't gotten there yet, but we're already talking about that. So the action requested.
Could I? Yeah, and I think we also need to talk, as I mentioned this morning. You know, we've been assuming that these meetings would be virtual. Obviously, a couple of you are here today, and that you know, Paul is here in Burr Ridge, and Michael is here in Burr Ridge. It is required, according to the the revised OMA, that either the executive officer, that'd be me, I guess, or the president, or somebody be physically present in the organization's building, headquarters, whatever. So, you know, I tend to come here anyway because I just, you know, the internet's a lot more stable, so that's all, you know, it's fine for, I like coming here. And, you know, we're happy to have the board meet here or in our other buildings that are open, as long as everybody understands that, you know, people will be wearing masks and social distancing. So, you know, the staff is not required to work in the, you know, to come to the buildings. Everybody is working from home if that is their choice. So we want to give the board members the same choice. But also, if we are going to be here or be in some building, we need to follow the rules. So I just wanted to say that as a precursor, because you know, as I think was mentioned before, you know, we have traveled. One of our goals has been to travel throughout the service area to different sites for the board meetings, and I think that's been fantastic because the board has seen, you know, different areas of Rails. They've met different libraries and librarians. They've, you know, formed, you know, closer relationships with each other and with the staff, but that's just kind of hard to do right now. And I think short term, you know, Zoom is the way to go, but it's really up to all of you. So that's what I had to say, Michael. So, sorry, back to you.
No, and as you can see, we've all been very socially distant here, and when we're not speaking, we're wearing our mask, and so it's worked out, very well. So since we're done that here, so you all have the draft meeting schedule for this next year. And the Rails board meeting usually meets on the fourth Friday of the month at 1 p.m. With changes made in the calendar year due to major conferences. In the past, we've traveled to different Rails service centers as well as other libraries throughout the Rails service area. But due to the pandemic, we've not planned any travel to other locations. And I'm sure that, much like what Paul and I have done today, if you wanted to come to the Burr Ridge offices, like we've done today, if you give Emily or Deidre a call and say you wanted to be physically here for the meeting, just let them know, and that's perfectly fine. We can arrange that.
Hey, Michael, this is Scott. Just a quick question on that. Deirdre, has anybody at Rails there done, kind of staged the room to know the max capacity while still social distancing?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that question. Mark did that. And do you have that, Monica?
I can pull it up.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yes, I didn't even plant it. It's a great question.
That sounds like a planted question.
It was not. It was just a brilliant question on Scott's part.
Well, I asked because we're going through that every day with trying to, our own meeting rooms and the libraries trying to figure it out, so.
While they're looking, I have a question. I was trying to pull up the document with the board, the dates, and it said it was unavailable on the board packet page.
Oh, no.
It wasn't the other day. It is now. The link wasn't working. I tried it twice.
All right, we can share that. Can you share that, Emily?
Can we share that? Yeah.
That's on my computer.
All right, I'll try it again. It just keeps telling me the link is broken.
Did you want to share the room thing first?
Sure.
Yes, you can share
We'll share the room thing first, then the schedule. Maybe the link will repair itself.
Most of the conferences have become virtual anyway,
Right.
So.
Which sometimes means you can meet as scheduled, and because you're not traveling, but sometimes you can't be right.
Okay.
We sort of erred on the conservative side.
Do you want me to just show it to you? Is that?
Well,
I can't.
I think somebody has to make you a co-host in order for you.
There it is.
There it is.
Great.
Yes.
I'm not in Zoom at all. So.
Okay. I don't know who shared it.
That's why I was going to share it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Can everybody see that? So today we have 2 fewer people than that shows, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the so that's
7.
max capacity.
Yep.
7 at the table.
There's 5 of us here today in the main meeting room.
What about those other chairs that are shown? Are those brown? No, people can't be there.
The room could be set up.
Can they be there too?
But
okay.
they wouldn't be at the main table, so it just depends on the preference of.
Got it. Yes, so those would be available, yes, but just not at the board table, so to speak.
And we'd have to set it up so these tables are a little closer in the middle.
Right, they have to be staggered and, yeah.
So Rails folks could sit at the chairs behind there, board people could sit.
Yep.
Here. Yeah.
Michael,
Yes.
what about at the service center locations like Diane and I and Sue are near the East Peoria?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be done. I don't think Mark figured it out for East Peoria yet, but.
With only 1 or 2 of them
Right. It shouldn't be a problem at East Peoria. We just need to be sure that the staff knows that they're going, that we have PPE, that we, etc.
Right. That you have a mask, that you make sure, you're washing your hands, all that good stuff. So. Any other questions about that? Here's the board, the draft board meetings for 2021. Just want to make sure that there are no major conflicts.
And while you're perusing that, we will ask Mark to put the East Peoria one together. Can you do that, Monica?
Yes.
I don't think that Beth, would you want to go to Coal Valley by any chance for a meeting?
I may, but if it's on Zoom, it'd probably just be easier for me to stay at school.
Okay. Okay. Obviously, this is, for the foreseeable future, which could be short or long, and we can certainly discuss this every month and see how we're feeling about things.
And as far as other locations, we have to post the agenda and the locations 48 hours prior to the meeting. So, when you get that Friday notification of, here's the board packet, we can talk about it then if you let me know where you'd like to attend the meeting.
Any other questions about the schedule for the board meeting? If not, could I have a motion and a second for the approval of the Rails board meeting for the 2021 year?
Scott, I'll make the
Sue.
motion to
I'll
approve.
move to accept the board meeting schedule.
I heard Scott accept that, and Sue,
Yep.
do you want to, as the second?
That's fine.
Emily, will you please call roll?
Sure. Sue Busenbark,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cox,
Yes.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Sarah McCone Chase,
Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Namek-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Teppen,
Yes.
and Alex Vincina.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so as we continue to move on, I think that agenda item number 10.2, the executive goals for FY 2021. This is action requested for the executive director goals.
Yes, thank you. So, so these are draft goals, and just to reiterate a couple of things in the memo, I laid out in very simple language the goals of the strategic plan, just so you could see how the goals for me that they're all related to the strategic plan, number one. Number two, obviously, it's pretty hard to extricate my goals from the Rails goals, which is as it should be, I would say. Number three is that last year, I think I had 13 goals, which I did get some questions about that from the from the board at the time. So I didn't include some goals again because they'd been on my goals for a while, and at a certain point, I think things become goals, projects, whatever. They're not really goals anymore. They're just part of your regular operations, what you do on a daily basis. And I thought that, and though, for me, it felt like planning for delivery changes, we're always doing that. assisting libraries with the minimum wage increases, of course, we've already been doing that and we'll continue to do it. Expanding Explore More, Find More, and Simply E, yes, those are programs that are being managed, currently by staff like Layla Heath and Jessica Barnes. So I just thought that I would remove those as particular focuses for me. Which is not to say that we're not going to do them, because they're the goals of some of our staff. Also, putting these in priority order is really hard. And so, frankly, universal service is probably in some ways my number one, library goal. But, for Rails, for the members, the way I think the prioritization that I've done is what makes the most sense. So I hope that makes sense to you, and happy to have discussion. They don't have to be approved today if you want to think about them some more, or they can be. It's up to you. But that was my thought process in developing them.
Any discussion?
I actually have a question. We talk about the strategic plan, the 5 goals. Goal 1, support and promote resource sharing. Do we have delivery services? Does that fall under that particular goal?
That is part of resource sharing.
Right. So in the strategic plan, we've incorporated resource sharing or delivery under resource.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
Because I think you'd mentioned earlier, you talked about how in June 1st, the RFI, the request for information had gone out for delivery services to make sure we're providing, the best services and considering all options. And that was done June 1st.
I'm sorry?
That went on, I'm sorry, I'm talking about my math.
That's all right, yeah.
That went on June 1st, right? Was when that
yeah,
RFI
the
was
responses
published.
are due early in August.
Right. And the process was started June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify the date, and also that was under goal 1 for research.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, as we've said, we define resource sharing very broadly, including Explore More, Simply E, Find More. Those are all under resource sharing too.
Thank you.
Yep. And I think the one where I expand support for multi-type library number 8, library cooperation in order to broaden and enlarge the economies of scale that occur when libraries cooperate. I think that in order to broaden and enlarge resource sharing, obviously, as well, too. So maybe I should add enlarge resource sharing, just to make that. I'll do that. I like that. After enlarge.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, then can I have a motion and a second of approval of the executive director's goals for FY 2021?
This is Jenna, so moved.
And a second?
This is Chris, I'll second.
Thank you. So Emily, will you call the roll?
Sue Busenbark,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Haley Cox,
Yes.
Percy Harris,
Yes.
Diane Hollister,
Yes.
Chris Kenny,
Yes.
Did you call my name? Yes.
Paul Mills,
Yes.
Jenna Nemec-Luisi,
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Becky Spratford,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Beth Peppin,
Yes.
and Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Deidre, those will be the goals then.
Here we go. Great. Now I know what to do.
Yeah.
Goodness me, I wasn't sure what I was.
So we'll move on to item number 10.3, which is Rails equity, diversity, and inclusion, and the social responsibility discussion.
Yes, thank you. And I may ask Monica to help me with this too. So we started having this conversation, maybe was it last month or the month before, I did share a draft statement that I wrote with help from the staff about systemic racism and bias. So what the document that you have in your packet starts out with just to provide the context that, you know, in the strategic plan, in goal 4, when we talk about preparing libraries for the future, we were very intentional about putting in not just, you know, more sort of concrete tool, you know, projects and programs, but also this sense that, you know, of the vital role that libraries play in building a civil and engaged society and core library values, and how important that is, and how that is core to what libraries of all types do. So, you know, we feel that that is a great sort of jumping off point for our work. Not that we needed one, but it just, that's where it's, you know, this is something that we believe in, and unfortunately the events of the past few months have sort of, you know, made it worse and made it even more important that we help libraries with this kind of work, as well as ourselves. And we had started, I guess in 2019, last year, talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion in the Rails organization, and had identified a consultant to work with us, Elizabeth, Biz, Lindsay, Ryan, to help us work on our own, you know, get our own house in order. Because we know we have problems, we have issues, shortcomings, every organization does. And, you know, some of the model work that libraries have done, I'm thinking, for example, of Skokie. Richard Kong did come and speak to the board, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, about work that Skokie has done, and he made the point very specifically that it was that they had to examine themselves and hold themselves accountable as a library first before they could help the community. And I thought that was absolutely critical. It made perfect sense to me. So that is the approach that we're taking. So we did have a conversation with Biz last week, and Joe, Philippek, and Monica are kind of leading this. I mean, obviously, we're all very committed to it, me in particular, but they've been leading it, and Monica had worked with Biz at Schaumburg too, so that was very helpful. And she did, and you know, we're trying to figure out the timeline for the work with her. There's money to do this in our budget. And she also suggested that perhaps we would want to work with a cohort of libraries on this, on EDI and eliminating systemic racism sooner rather than later. And we thought that was an interesting idea. And so at this point, this is still, we're still like formulating and forming this whole project. It's huge. It's gonna, you know, it's not something that we're going to do this year and then it will be done. You know, so I'm just trying to bring you all up to date at this point about our thinking and what our plans are. What would you like to add, Monica? Anything about?
I think just that we're taking a multiple prong approach to being able to approach this for our own staff. So it would start with a climate team, which will start very soon. Biz is going to be coming to our next staff meeting next week at Rails, and that should allow for us to, I don't think that should allow for us to be able to pull together a climate team of 8 to 10 people from the Rails staff. We'll be focused on this for a couple of hours a month in a program that would be facilitated by Biz. Then what we would do is make sure that there were staff-wide trainings and a series of staff-wide trainings that went to every single person that's working at Rails to make sure that we're also approaching all of staff as well as the more focused climate teamwork that's going to be going on. And then we would also be looking at ways to bring training to Rails members who maybe might not otherwise have access to this kind of training, or who would be interested in forming more of a cohort around the work that they're doing at their own libraries. And we haven't fleshed out that, how it would look exactly, but that is something else that we're going to be looking to do in this next fiscal year.
Right. Questions, comments? Yes. Hi, Becky.
Hi. So some of you might not know this, but I'm a national expert on this topic too. And I feel very strongly that we should focus on that last part Monica was talking about once the Rails staff gets going, that helping libraries who don't have access to this training is extremely important. The number of library systems that have hired me to do this kind of training, I'm doing another national one for free if you're interested through Library Reads in August. And Library Journal runs one every couple months and it's really expensive. I usually present at it. The need for this and for it to be done at the system level where we can provide it at no cost or a very low cost is just so imperative right now. Especially one of the reasons it's so imperative is, as I like to say when I'm giving the training, and I'm presenting with someone from Skokie actually, 2 people of color and myself, and I like to say I'm the face of librarianship. We're 88% white ladies, and my friends who are librarians of color say it's extremely important for someone who looks like all of them to tell them what they're doing wrong. So we just, I really hope we can be leaders on this. I feel very strongly about that.
Yes.
I have a
and
question.
so do we. Yes, Diane.
Yes, I have a question. Do you foresee sometime in the future a creation of an EDI committee for Rails?
Do you mean a staff? You don't mean the climate team. You mean like a board committee?
Yes.
A member committee?
Yes.
Yes, I think that's definitely something that we know we have to do. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And there is currently an email list.
There is currently an email list as well.
If anyone's interested.
If anybody's interested. I think, as I said, I think this is very much still in the formative stages. It's big, you know, and it's really big, and we want to do it right. And you know, well, so are you suggesting, Diane, that there should be a board committee?
Yes.
That talks. Okay.
Yes, I am.
I think that's a great point to bring up, and that's up to the board.
I agree, Diane. I think on multiple levels, both in race, diversity, all kinds of things like that, that we could use how we can promote diversity in hiring and, you know, getting more librarians, you know, more librarians into the field that are, you know, diverse. So.
Well, just so you know too, it's.
Oh, we lost you, Becky.
I was just going to say it's also a way of spreading the word and making it, you know, making it more visible to members and libraries.
And what were you going to say, Becky?
I was going to say too, I just want the board to be aware, I know the staff are, it's more than just getting more people of color involved in the field. There are microaggressions that every single one of us do every day of our lives that we don't even realize. And I'm sure, I know business training, she helps identify those. It's work that, and Dee referred to this when she said, you know, obviously we have to work on this. Every single person has to work on it. And I love Diane's idea of making it a board committee, because then that'll keep it at the forefront, and there'll be a forcing of having to report on it every month.
And you know, what I remember about, I forgot what the librarian at Skokie, his name was.
Richard Kong.
Yeah, I think what he said, what I remember him saying was, it's not just about color at your library, that, you know, I live in a community that is probably 94% white, But diversity can include sexual orientation. It can include religion. It can include a number of things in your community.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize that. And it can include those microaggressions that you don't even realize that you do every single day. So.
And I'd like to add to what I just wanted to add to what Michael is. I'd like to add to what Michael was saying about, I think it's going to be really important for us to articulate what we mean when we say diversity and have a clear definition of that. And I'm not saying that we want to be so specific that we potentially rule out different kinds of diversity, but I think we want it to be broad and inclusive. Because as Michael pointed out, there is visible diversity, and I believe that visible diversity includes things like race, which are absolutely imperative for us to address, but they also include invisible diversity, which I think sometimes is not as considered. I think sometimes when we hear the word diverse, we think more in terms of the visible aspects of it, and the invisible. As someone who identifies as having invisible diversity, it's extremely important to me that be included. So I think as long as we're clear as a board and as a leadership team, as a Rails staff about what we're talking about, and then we can articulate that if someone were to ask us, I'm really excited about the work, and I can't wait to get started. And I also support the idea of a board committee to address some of these topics.
Great. And you know, I have, of course, I have many conversations with library staff, directors all over the Rails service area. And I know that with the best will in the world, people don't know that they have these issues. Exactly. And the first, I mean, I think, when you have the conversation, they begin to get a glimmer a lot of the time, but it's always, I think it's like a shock to, it's surprising. And I think just like surfacing that alone, that people realize, oh yeah, I guess I'm not unbiased in every way I think and do and act. I mean, that alone would be a huge accomplishment, I think, So anyway, it's so needed. And it's important for Rails, but like I said, when Biz suggested that maybe we could include a cohort of libraries, that really appealed to me because we can get the impact out there faster. So I think what, I would like to, for us to be able to continue to work on, writing down the focus, because I think kind of what you said, Jenna, about what is diversity, but also like what, I mean, and yes, it's people in the profession, but it's also the fact that, and there was a great infographic, and I was mentioning it to Paul and Monica. It was about, what's the systemic racism and bias in libraries? Well, having to have a master's degree in library science is a huge barrier, and it just knocks a whole bunch of people out of the line of, potentially being a librarian. They can't afford it. Whatever. So, there's just so many components that we have to think about. In terms of the committee, what we would normally do at this point is, staff would develop a draft charge for you guys all to look at so that you have something to react to. And if that sounds good, that's what we'll do. Great.
So that kind of works right into our next thing for the agenda building for the next board meeting.
Can I just bring up one thing that Diane brought up this morning, and I wanted to remember that to talk about it today, this afternoon when the whole board is here. Diane brought up the idea of mentors for new board members. You want to just talk about that for a minute, Diane?
Yes, I found it quite helpful last July, when I came on board I asked Tom if he would mind being my mentor, Tom Staggs. And it's been extremely helpful for me because we do chat, we do email, and it's helped me tremendously because there is just so much to learn. And just the first day that you're introduced to Rails, it's just you have a lot of things, you know, all at once, and it is overwhelming. But asking Tom questions and just taking some, you know, talking to him on the phone or meeting him here in Bloomington, it's been so helpful. And I suggest that if you to reach out to any one of us. I mean, I'll continue to reach out to anyone for questions as well. Tom has been exceptionally great for me.
Yes, and we, you know, that really, I mean, we can facilitate that, I think, but really it's kind of up to the board members. I think if you're willing to, you know, help others, if you want help from others, if you want us to help you figure out how to reach out to someone, we're happy to do that.
I'd be happy to do it, Deirdre. But this is my 6th year on the board, so I'm happy. If it's formal, informal relationship, I'm happy to do it.
Great, thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul, because
So
I was
just
just going to send you an email and ask if you would.
Perfect.
Sure, happy to.
I think at the first board meeting at the orientation, it especially feels like there's a lot to know because we just keep throwing stuff at you, but it'll get better, and these things, everything will just be completely clear by at least September, right?
And you, before we do the agenda building, you know, we've always, and the pandemic has kind of taking this off of our agenda too. We've always gone around and asked
Yes.
the board members of anything happening at their libraries. And with libraries opening again and things like that, I think we should do that.
We're going to start putting that all back on the agenda, as well as board development.
Yeah.
Yes, we were just being really careful about essential business, but I've sort of decided it's all essential. It's all about learning and sharing.
Yeah. So so if you know, if anybody has something they want to talk about at their libraries, now's the time to do that. Scott, you always have something going on at your library.
Well, as you might imagine, we don't have any major events about to happen anytime soon.
I will say my library's opening on Wednesday. I'm really excited about that. You know, for in person. I mean, we've been open, but we're actually opening for foot traffic starting Wednesday.
That's great. I love hearing that.
We're talking about having foot traffic back in our library for the fall semester, but it's going to be like severely protracted. Right now, I mean, it's still a discussion, but they're talking about maybe as many as 100 people at a time, 50 people per lower level and first floor, and then no more than that. And I think that's going to have to include all the staff who will be working. So we'll have to see how that works out. But it's moving.
At
We'll say
LaGrange,
this.
we did 1 week or 2 weeks with appointments, and we found that, and Swan started up again, so we were getting busier on curbside. But we found that which was great, but not enough. A lot of people were like, "Oh, we don't want to bother if you don't have to." So now we're actually opening up starting next week to no appointment necessary, and we're just going to monitor. And people were so good staying. We looked at it. We gave people an hour, but the average stay was 15 minutes. So we feel like we don't have to do hour appointment.
The new Lennox has been open for walk-ins for a couple of weeks now. I was talking to some of the staff this morning, and they all said it's going very well. They were a little apprehensive when we first reopened that they might have some issues with patrons not wanting to follow rules about wearing masks at all times while they're in the building, but response from the community has been very positive. We haven't had any issues. We're not doing appointments. We're just monitoring capacity. We hand out a certain number of passes for the first floor and for the second floor, and haven't even got close to hitting that really. So it's been going well.
Good. Tom?
At our library, we opened up Monday. Everything's been going well. We are doing curbside pickup for those people who do not want to come in the library as well, the first hour of every morning. So everything's so far so good. One weird thing that's happened is that we've been working on the IPLAR, and the numbers just are so different because there's so many outside e-commerce type things going on that's going to affect those numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've had the public back in our building since June 8th, and seeing like a steady climb in usage, but it was pretty interesting to see our sysadmin for the Pinnacle Library Group told us last week that as a consortium, we're up to about 60% of the circs that we had this time last year. Like week after week, it's climbing, but we're almost to the 2/3 of normality when it comes to checking out materials. So that was pretty exciting to hear.
Yeah, that is very exciting to hear.
So, anything else? Okay, Jenna.
So I work at North Shore Country Day in Winnetka, and we are proceeding with caution in terms of our school reopening plan. At the moment, we are planning on a hybrid model. Our head of school has said that if the governor says that schools can be open, we will be open, but we will be open on a modified schedule. So we are a junior kindergarten through 12th grade school. Our lower school and middle school students, so that junior kindergarten through 8th grade, will come to campus from 8 to 12. Then they will go home. And then our upper schoolers in 9th through 12th grade will be on campus from 12 to 4. So we are planning for everybody to come to school 5 days a week, but on that modified schedule. And in terms of the school library, we're still making some decisions, but I'm very proud at being able to use available resources that we've put together for school librarians to claim my seat at the table and assert my position as a leader in the school to be able to have some decision-making ability with how the library reopening will unfold. So we're continuing to work toward that. And in addition to that webinar that I'm going to be co-hosting with some other aisle member leaders, I'm the chair-elect of the independent school section for the American Association of School Librarians. And on Sunday night, we're going to be hosting a chat about reopening for our members, and I will be talking specifically about my own experiences and being a part of that. So things are moving forward. Doesn't mean that I'm not nervous about welcoming all of our students back to campus, but we're going to do the best that we can to ensure the health and safety of everyone while also trying to make school happen.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
This has nothing to do with the library's opening, but I'm just kind of curious about summer reading, how this pandemic has affected the summer reading program throughout the state. And maybe it's a possibility that next year they could rethink the summer reading. But I know ours in Bloomington went off without a hitch. It's just great. So kudos to all of the libraries in Illinois who have continued with their summer reading.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's been very important. It's been interesting, a lot of, so many virtual programs, including summer reading, and some interestingly, immediate, apps or platforms libraries could buy to do summer reading. It was amazing how they just at least for me, they just kind of showed up, but.
Excellent.
Yep.
So we'll move on to next to the last thing, which is the agenda building for the next board meeting, which will be August 28th at 1 p.m. on Friday. We will review the annual report draft, as well as looking at things like the committee things. We'll add the EDI draft for that.
Yep.
And anyone who wants to volunteer to be a mentor that
Yep.
will also be on there. Anything else that we should add to the agenda on there?
Not that I can think of right now, but I'm sure something will come up.
Okay. Very good. If nothing else, then I thank you for your attendance and for your attendance. I think this has been a longer meeting for today. And so I will adjourn this meeting at 2:59 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Thanks.
great weekend.
Especially
Thank you.
to the
Goodbye.
new members.
Bye, everyone.
It's been a long
Bye-bye.
day. Thank you.
Thank you.